You are doing planning all wrong. And this phenomenon that we're about to get into actually teaches us that we all get it wrong. No one is safe out here. We can all get it. And I am talking about all aspects of planning. Planning for anything and everything. I mean, planning to get ready for the club tonight. Planning to make your way to the airport. Planning for a project and how long it's going to take. We all do it wrong, and psychology has taught us that none of us are safe. And this, my friend, is all because of the planning fallacy. The planning fallacy is this psychological phenomenon in which humans consistently over time, day in, day out, week in, week out, underestimate the time and the resource required to actually fulfill a task. We get it wrong all the time. We do it despite having access to knowledge, to evidence that that task is going to take way longer than we think. We have seen through evidence, through past experiences, that it's actually going to take us 2 hours to get ready, not 1. But despite that, we continue to allocate just 1 hour to getting ready. I feel like we're quite good as humans at seeing some evidence and making making quite a good, quite a reasonable inference from it. But when it comes to this, when it comes to planning, we allocate less time, or we underestimate how much time this thing is going to take. And this is all because of an optimism bias that we all have. And I'm going to come back to this optimism bias. It's a type of cognitive bias. I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but let me just keep going, okay? Amos Tversky, and don't mind me butchering their names, Daniel Kahneman, oh, I butchered that so hard, came together in the 1970s and the 1980s, and they are the first researchers to identify this thing called the planning fallacy. So they're like the forefathers of this theory. And they stated this: no matter how detailed, the business scenarios used in planning are generally inadequate, and they tend to understate the costs and overstate the benefits. Additionally, they also tend to exaggerate the degree of control that we have over events, discounting the role of luck. Think about it like this, right? It's Saturday. You know that you have an event that starts at 4 p.m. That's the time that you need to be there. You wake up on Saturday morning, you check Waze, and you check to see how long it's going to take you to get to this event. It says it's going to take you 1 hour. Therefore, in a logical state of mind, you think, okay, that means I need to leave the house at 3 p.m. So you take comfort in the fact that you have up until 3 p.m. to do whatever you want to do, because 3 p.m. is the deadline. It's the time that you need to get in your car and get to this event. Like, it makes sense, right? It says it's a 1 hour journey, so leave at 3 p.m. and you'll get there at 4 p.m. on the dot. So you assume. However, you have not taken into consideration different external events that can happen and therefore jeopardize your precious 1 hour journey to said event. Even like just losing your keys before leaving the house. You haven't considered the fact that there might be traffic, there might be roadworks, there might be X, Y, and Z on the road. Instead, you have taken the shortest amount of time that it will take to do said plan, and you have absolutely just ran with it. That's what we do. We don't want to try and get it's not sexy to find the longest time. It's sexy to find the quickest amount of time that it will take to execute a plan and go with that. And also another thing you haven't considered is looking for parking and all of these different issues. But let me tell you this, right? Let's say you were going and you were taking your friends, right? And you said, okay guys, it's gonna take 1 hour to leave, so we're gonna leave 2 hours before, just so that we can account for any mishaps on the road. That is not sexy. Do you know what I mean? It's better to say, oh yeah, it's gonna take 1 hour, so we're gonna leave at 3 p.m. That just makes more sense to most people because of optimism bias. What we don't think about is that any one of those things that I said, so like roadworks, traffic, looking for parking, looking for your keys, any one of those small things can totally throw off your precious 1 hour timescale that you have allocated to this plan. Imagine if 2 of those things happen. Imagine if there was traffic, you can't find your keys, or even let's say 3 things, and you couldn't find parking. Yeah, that's gonna completely throw everything off. And despite gathering lots of evidence over the years that if Waze says it's gonna take an hour, most often it's gonna increase in time, we still pursue plans with the shortest amount of time, despite having evidence that it rarely works like that. It's such a thing that there's even a word for it, TIDS optimist. This just means a time optimist. So what is this about? Why do we keep doing this if there's evidence to suggest that we're going to fail again? And the answer is quite simple: optimism bias. Optimism bias is a cognitive bias, and essentially it's just our tendency to overestimate the amount of positive outcomes that we'll will receive and underestimate the amount of negative experiences that we'll encounter. And because of this bias, we almost always overestimate our abilities to complete tasks in a really short amount of time. We are like hardwired to be over optimistic about our abilities, to be overconfident about them. So even when we fell before and it's like, okay, this didn't take 1 hour, it took 2 hours, we still feel like, okay, yeah, well, next time I can still do it in an hour. I mean, it's not sexy to be a pessimist, right? So people that tend to embody this planning fallacy are more likely to be very flustered, to be very frustrated, to be less productive as well. And also it kind of reinforces this false idea of failure, that they never manage to get things done. And it's not that they keep failing at this thing, it's just that they're not adequately setting enough time to complete said task. You find a lot of people also beating themselves up because they're not able to finish what they predicted, what they set out to finish in that amount of time or in that day. Instead, just adopt an evidence-based approach to planning. You know it's not going to take you 1 hour to get ready. You have so much evidence to suggest that is not the case. Like, it takes you 2 hours to get ready or however long, but it does not take you 1 hour. So this time, right now, do not allocate 1 hour because you know it's not going to get done. Instead, allocate more time to getting ready, allocate more time to completing this task or completing this project. So maybe it's 30 minutes to have a shower and moisturize, 20 minutes to straighten your hair, and might I add, we're already nearly at 1 hour. 40 minutes to do your makeup, and maybe 15 minutes to put on your dress, grab your jewelry, get your keys, and get out the house. But on top of that, we're also gonna add a bit of a buffer, some buffer time. Let's call it like a margin of safety, right? Where we have an extra 15 minutes just in case there are any mishaps. Just in case whilst you're straightening your hair, it blows up and oh my God, like you have to go to your friend's house and buy a new one. I'm joking, but just anything can go wrong. And that's why it's also important to just add that margin of safety time as well. So from now on, it's not 1 hour that you're allocating to get ready, it's maybe 2. And that's just how it is from now on. Trust that number more and divide it into small chunks so that you're able to, just so it's more manageable and so that you're able to understand how long each task is going to take in your getting ready project. This applies to everything though, from projects and plans that your boss is literally just on your neck about, all the way through to your uni work, whatever it is, just even like just getting to places. You have to try and take a more evidence-based approach to planning. Don't fall into this fallacy. Don't let optimism bias just take over and tell you that it's going to take a lot less time than it actually will, and than it has in the past as well. Thank you so much for watching. Just remember in the future that it's probably going to take you a lot more time than you think.